So, really excited today. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world. Excited to be joined by Andy Cope. Andy is a happiness expert. He is also an author as well. He completed his PhD in positive psychology at Loughborough University, and essentially that's around happiness and well-being. And we've all been in a situation at work, at home, where we perhaps feel down, low, all these sorts of feelings. And Andy, he's the guy who has a business called The Art of Brilliance, which does training, workshops across the world for people across the world in how to be their best selves. So really excited to be here today with you, Andy. Thanks so much for joining us. And as I said, Andy today is going to talk to us about various things, including how to stay positive in work and in life, so that you can really sort of be in the best possible position and be the best possible person you can be in order to, I suppose, fulfill that purpose that is within you. So, Andy, thank you. Tell us a bit more about you.
Mate. That's spot on. Your happy smiley face makes me happy straight away, mate. So that's good, isn't it? That's a good start. And yeah, happiness obviously is contagious. All the viewers, listeners know that anyway. And so basically, what I did about 11 years ago now, it's been quite a long PhD process, but what I did was I studied psychology back in the day at uni when psychology was about ill people. So I read big, thick textbooks crammed full of people with problems. So I learned about phobias, disorders, anxiety, depression, all the usual stuff. It was really interesting and very useful, but I knew there was something missing. And it wasn't until 2005 I enrolled on a PhD at Loughborough, and I decided to look at positive psychology, that's the study of wellness. It's the study of people who are already happy. And I thought, well, how have we missed that for so long? We spent all these resources and all these years looking at depression and downbeatedness. And it's about, well, what can we learn from happy people? So that really sparked my interest. So I threw myself into a PhD. And then the Art of Being Brilliant, which is the sort of flagship workshops, keynotes, as you said, we deliver them all over the place. And they came out of, really, it's the PhD, but without the big words. Mm-hmm. Just like, what do we really learn about happiness? And that's what I want to share with your folks.
Well, that's great. And it's like you said, it's the flip side, isn't it? It's the glass half full.
Yeah. Well, who are those people? If I ask you to count the number of negative people in your life, you could list me you could write me a list of 100 people. If I ask you to list the people who, when they're around, they make you feel fantastic, what is it? And you can probably count them on the fingers of one hand. The people in your life who are genuinely upbeat and positive to the point whereby it leaks out of them and you get infected with it as well. They're really good people to have around. Absolutely. I call it flourishing. So, I mean, a bit of a technical point, but I've not really been studying happiness. I've been studying those people in the workforce who make other people feel good as well. So, yes, they are happy in their own skin and they do feel great, but they also make other people feel great as well. And that is flourishing. And that is a step above happiness, I think, because it's contagious.
Excellent. And you've worked with none other than likes of IKEA, AstraZeneca.
Yeah, we work with big companies, and like you said, you alluded to in your interview, all over the world now. Get this, the Brits are now exporting happiness. Who would have ever thought that? Who would have thought that, man?
Who would believe it?
Because as a nation, because that's an important point actually, as a nation, the British, I know you've got an international audience, but the British are quite negative and a little bit downbeat. We're quite glass half empty as a nation. We like to have a moan. We like to have a grumble. The news is bad, the weather's bad, work pressures are harsh, and the cultural disposition, unless you're very careful, is you get sucked into that. You become just a little bit mediocre. Your life becomes a little bit dull and a little bit samey. So I don't. The average lifespan is about 4,000 weeks, and that terrifies me. I mean, you're just a young lad. I'm nearly 50, mate. I've used half of mine, and what I want to do is make sure that we come alive. That we're not like the land of the living dead. That we're part of that small minority who are buzzing, enthusiastic and upbeat as much as we can be. I mean, the modern world doesn't dictate we can be like that all the time, but you can change your mental habits and get yourself in a better place, basically.
Absolutely. Well, I'm pushing 40, so there comes that point in
life. Well, you're looking good. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there comes that point in life where you start kind of, it's not going to go on forever. Have you seen Sixth Sense, mate? Have you seen Bruce Willis?
I have, yes.
Right, it's a movie. If your listeners and your viewers haven't seen it, you need to rent that movie and watch it twice. You have to watch it twice to understand it. But It's a corking movie. I don't want to give it away, but it's quite creepy. But there's this great line where this little lad looks at Bruce Willis and he says, I see dead people.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I see them all the time, mate. Monday mornings, you see them all the time going into work on the tube, in the traffic.
I
And
used
there's
to
a
be one of
pulse,
those.
but yeah, well, I did as well.
Yeah.
I did as well. And I guess a lot of people, well, a lot of people are like that. Their life can just become a little bit mundane, and it's about rattling the cage. Your whole kind of podcast and thing is about, come on, let's wake up.
How did we get to this point, though, Andy? Do you think? I mean, that negativity that we talked about.
Yeah.
How do we come to that?
Well, it's just a part of your, I mean, without kind of boring you to death, but part of your mental habits is, as we've evolved through negativity. So back in the day when life was really scary and the world was very harsh and you were being chased by saber-toothed tigers, we learned to look out for danger. So your brain, there's two things you want to do. You want to survive and you want to pass your genes on. That's basically what we're driven by. And you never get, so back in the day, you go, well, let's not go in that cave. It's dangerous. Let's not eat that funny coloured mushroom. It looks really dangerous. But all the happy people back in the day, they were going, oh, cave, fantastic, let's get in there. Oh, cheeky little mushroom, I love that for breakfast. And they all died. They died, mate. All the happy, positive ones got killed off. And therefore, I mean, I'm trying to say it in a funny way, but what that means is our brains are seeking danger and negativity all the time because it saves your life. Mm-hmm. And happiness doesn't save your life. And therefore, your brain is less tuned in at a happy level. So you've got to work a little bit harder to see the happiness and you've got to work harder to wake up. It's easy to go through life looking for danger and having the negative self-talk.
And there's lots of research that I've looked at which says around about 20% of people, only 20%, around that area, are happy at work.
Yeah, well, I mean, once again, that goes to the heart of the PhD. I hardly get a chance to talk at this level, actually, because quite often I do a workshop and I'll skim over the surface and try and be funny. But actually, I'd say we've always looked at job satisfaction. So, and job satisfaction, if this is what satisfaction means, we've measured job satisfaction. Satisfaction is just, yeah, I'm okay, I'm satisfied. But I'm looking at what I call job engagement, or worker engagement. And engagement is much more vigorous, it's much more motivated. If I'm engaged in something, I'm much more willing to go the extra mile. I'm much more willing to want to turn up to work with a smile on my face and take people with me and make my customers go, wow. So actually, I've been looking at the difference between job satisfaction, which is like okay, and job engagement, which is wowzer. And you've hit on a really big thing there. You know, you reckon there's 20% that are happy. There's 20% that therefore are satisfied. Right, but there's only about, I would say, maximum of 10%, possibly even only 2% who are genuinely engaged. Wow. And that is full of vigour, energy, verve, vivacity, passion, whatever you want to call it. Now, and I'll give you more stats. At the other end of the spectrum, there's a survey, I think it's 2014, 43% of people are actively disengaged. So if I'm saying there's only 2% who turn up like wowzer, but there's 43% that don't want to be there at all. And there's 22% that feel really unsupported at work. So they're just going through the motions. They're coming alive when they get home. They're not coming alive when they get to work. And modern organisations, we've got to find a way of tapping. What a waste of a resource.
Absolutely.
You've got half your workforce are turning up and they don't even want to be there. Then what are we going to do with them? How can we get them so they're not, dead people as well?
Mm. And then, because again, I do my own research for the last couple of years because, as I said, I used to be at a point myself where I was at a really low ebb. So with that in mind, and for me personally, what turned it around for me was finding my own purpose, finding something that I could really be engaged in. So is there therefore a correlation with purpose and happiness at work?
Well, yeah, there is really. I mean, we could talk about purpose in lots of ways. I mean, you could talk about purpose in terms of religion. I mean, there's... not my research, but there's lots of research that says religious people, if you've got a belief, whatever your God is, you are statistically likely to be happier simply because you've got this higher thing that you've got, so that gives people purpose. In terms of the workplace, you can link purpose to things like setting goals. So what my research shows is that goal setting, and I'm talking about huge goals, not smart object. I'm not going to bore you with smart. They're normally falling asleep after that acronym. Because if you want to be like everybody else in the business, then set yourself and your team a SMART objective, achievable and realistic. So basically, SMART says, let's do what we did last year, but 2% better. Well, yeah. What really? That's not going to inspire anybody. Your purpose, if you want a real purpose, you want a rocking team, then you set what I call a HUG, a huge, unbelievably great goal. You set something for yourself or your team that is on the edges of achievability. It's almost like out there that is, we're only ever going to achieve that if we're all at our best as much as possible. And a hug can be anything. It doesn't have to be work. Run a marathon, to write a book, to be the best mum in the world, to be the best team in the world. And a hug, if you articulate it correctly and you get it embedded in your life, gives you a purpose. It gives you a drive and an enthusiasm and a set of a vigor, if you like. We're back to that engagement word and that vigor that most people haven't got. Most people's aim, mate, is to get through the week. Yeah, it's to survive to the next holiday. Almost accidentally counting their lives away. I've said you've got 4,000 weeks. Why the hell would we be trying to wish them away? You know, you might have a holiday booked in 3 weeks and somebody says, how are you? Only 3 weeks to go. and that, you think about what you're saying to yourself subconsciously is, just got to get these 3 weeks out of the way. I'll be happy when these 3 weeks are gone. We haven't got enough weeks left on this planet to be counting them down, wishing them away. And the truth is, the reality is, a lot of people live their life like that. And so goal setting, I think, in the workplace is a really smart way, or particularly hugs, or as a guy called Kim Cameron, Dr. Kim Cameron, he talks about Everest goals. And an Everest goal is a massive, big thing you want to achieve. And Everest has been conquered, so it is achievable, but not by many. So he's setting your stall out to achieve things that are really, really big and knee-shakingly exciting. And the other one, while we're on purpose, is the people in my research, one of the big drivers of happy, positive people is they have that sense of making a difference at work. And I think the modern world, we've almost had that bashed out of us. Even occupations where you think there needs to be a genuine need to care, so like care workers. And so you'd read in the news all the time that, you know, I've got 15 minutes. So social workers, care workers have got a 15-minute appointment. Right? And it's like, well, dress that wound, that's 8 minutes. Wipe somebody's bottom, that's 2 minutes. Get an old person dressed, that's 6 minutes. Bang, I'm out the door. Because it's all like, I've got to do it as quickly as possible.
Numbers.
And yeah, and what happens is that person, it's bad for the person on the receiving end of the care because they're seeing somebody and it's just a whirlwind and then they're out the door again. There's no time for a human connection. But it's also very bad for the person delivering the care because what that efficiency saving is telling that person is, we don't really care about the quality. Just get it done and bang on to the next person. And therefore it kills our sense of making a difference. So even in the professions where you really have to care, otherwise, you know, I'm going into and sorting out old people and looking, oh God, you know, you've got to be a certain kind of person to do that. Even those people are having the stuffing knocked out of them.
Andy, Andy, are you still there? Andy, can you hear me?
I can hear you, mate. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know at what point you went down.
The last thing I heard was even those people are having the stuffing knocked out of them.
Okay, so have you got the wherewithal to edit all this together? Or
Yes, I've got a video editor. I can hear you, but I can't see you now.
okay. Oh, yeah. Well, I can see you now. Can you have my back?
Pardon? No, you're not back yet.
I don't know. I've not. All right, hold on.
There you
That's
are.
about that. Yeah. Sorry about that. I was getting all excited as well, mate. I was.
It's the energy. That's what happened.
It is.
The energy.
So do we allude to the fact we've lost the connection and then you edit it back, or what do we do?
Well, I'll be able to. Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah. Should we do that? Should
Yeah.
we do that? Okay, Alex, sorry about that. And one thing you wanted on this was a secure internet connection. We just lost it there for a second, didn't we? I think it was the energy, mate. It was the passion.
The excitement.
Yeah. So what I was saying is even... I think what I was saying is even in professions that you have to care and you have to make a difference, you have to have a purpose, they're having their purpose squeezed out of them. And that was my point. And I think it's... yeah, well, for most people, here's one of the things that we use in the workshop is for most people are living life fast, but are we living it well? And I think that goes to the heart of the modern world, is your 4,000 weeks are zipping by in a blur. And I think this and our workshops and our books are all about wrestling with that power in our heads and what can we learn from positive, happy people that we can all put into practice.
And then how, Andy, I don't know if this is something that you can talk to, but how can we align who we are with the work that we do, and really go about finding a culture that suits.
Yeah, it's
suits
an
us?
interesting question, mate. You might be lucky. I mean, I don't know how many people are speaking on your podcast, but they'll all be saying the same thing. If you can find a career that is your passion and is your purpose and plays to your strengths, then it's never really doing a day's work in your life. And there's a famous quote by somebody around those lines. Some people, though, I meet a lot of people who are stuck. They were done the same job before. I met a guy in a local authority, public sector, and he said, "Oh, I've worked here 39 years. I've not had a good day yet."
Oh no.
Yeah, I was like, well, why didn't you leave? Maybe after maybe 2 years, and he's not going to get those 39 years back. And there's a lot of people like that who have never find their purpose. They never have a goal, and they're just kind of going through life looking to put our happiness off for retirement. And I think it's a really good question. How on earth do we find that? I think if you wait around for the perfect job or the perfect boss and it's never going to happen, right? Or you'll be very lucky if it does happen. You've got to seek it out. And I think it's what I call it life crafting. And life crafting is, if you look at happy, positive people, then they will do a job, they will throw themselves into it, and if they're genuinely not making a difference and they're not happy, they will actually leave. And I know that sounds obvious, but a lot of people, that guy, I've been here 39 years, he didn't leave, he didn't do that. It's obvious, but he didn't do it. So I call it life crafting. And life crafting is when you continually search for your mojo in life. What is it? We're looking, if it's not the right fit for me, then I'm going to go and find somewhere else and I'm going to experiment with it. So it's about quit waiting for the right moment and the right thing. So try and create it yourself by being your best self. And if it doesn't happen, then do some life crafting and move forward. And it's quite a brave thing to do, that is, sometimes. But you've done it, I've done it, it's doable. We meet people all the time who have taken charge, take personal responsibility, really, is we're talking there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people tend, in my experience in recruitment, tend to perhaps look to finding a job that, rather than crafting their life, they want to pay the bills. So that's their priority,
sure.
Isn't it?
For sure, and that is I mean, I'm not saying jack your job in if you're not happy, but I mean, there's three things. I can't remember the name: a job, a career, or a calling. If you've got a job, you'll feel it in the pit of your stomach, because when the alarm goes every day, it's just a means to paying the bills. A career is a bit more than that. You feel a bit invested in your future. You feel like you're getting somewhere, but it's still, you're doing it for the salary. A calling is when, I wouldn't tell my boss, but I would have done it for free, because do you know what? I'm just having such a good time. And it's that if you can manufacture in your life that sense of calling, and it links in with all the stuff that you talked about earlier about purpose and about doing what you love doing, playing to your strengths, setting huge goals. And that's your calling. And your calling is when work doesn't feel like work. Mm-hmm. And we all hit those days sometimes, but it's about what if you can craft the next 30 years of your career, creating opportunities for yourself where work doesn't feel like work, then that's the jackpot, mate.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking about that guy who'd been in a situation of work for 39 years. That's not unusual. I mean, my mum's generation were that, that kind of work was...
You just put up with it. You put up with it. And it's, but I think there's no, you spend 30% of your entire life is spent at work, another 30% asleep. If you start adding up, that's a lot of time gone.
Absolutely.
You start panicking. I've only got 40% left,
Yeah.
So you can't waste that 30% by going through the motions and the drudgery of like the zombies do.
Mm-hmm. And that drudgery can really sort of impact you in the sense that you might become one of those people who are perhaps moody, disaffected by what you're doing. I think you call it the mood hoover, right?
I call them mood hoovers. I used to be a mood hoover, mate. I was fine. Mood hoovers aren't horrible, and it's not depression. It's just low-level moaning. It's getting stuck in grumble mode. How are you? Well, I'm not too bad considering. I'll be all right at 5 o'clock. I've got a whole language about slightly down sort of language. And I think mood hoovers, it's a habit. It's a habit of thinking, and it's because it's culturally normal. If everybody else is moaning, then we want to be a social animal. We want to fit in. So without even really knowing it, we just fit into the cultural norm. And therefore, these happy people that I've been investigating it's quite brave, because you've got to be prepared to stand out. Not ridiculous, not like, woohoo, look at me, I'm happy, because somebody's going to punch your lights out. That's not appropriate on a Monday morning. But it is about raising your game. What I've figured is everywhere I go, I'm there. That sounds a bit odd, but everywhere I go, standing at a queue in the supermarket, and I'm like, blimey, it's me again. I'm here. I'm going home with my kids. Oh, it's me again. I'm the only constant factor in all those situations. So all I can do is work on me. But if I can get me right, and I can be the best version of me that I possibly can be, then everybody benefits in all those situations. Even the queue at the supermarket benefits, because if I'm feeling good, people around me are going to catch that. Absolutely. But if I'm feeling bad, then they're going to catch that as well. So we're as human beings, we're very contagious. Our happiness and our it reaches 3 degrees of people removed from us. So it has it is a contagion. I guess the question is, what do you want to infect people with in the nicest possible way?
And when you were in that state yourself, that mood hoover state, what were the habits?
The habits
Did you
were
notice
my wife.
them?
I didn't know at the time. I was completely oblivious. It's like a fish doesn't know it's swimming in water. It's not ever twigged. Is that my wife was a teacher. Right? I've been married lots of years, but first 10 years, a good 10 years of our married life, the ritual was we'd get home from work and we'd spend half an hour, maybe a bit longer, bragging about who's had the worst day. Wow. It's like some sort of competition. So I'd say to I was teaching today. Oh, it's not teaching, it's crowd control. They're a nightmare. The kids, you can't control them. Mobile phones, they're trying to look down my top. They're not listening to me. I'm waiting for 3:30 and the bell's gone. I'm like, oh, another day gone. When can I retire? And like after about 6 months, I became immune. I stopped listening. And all I was doing was waiting for my go. So as soon as she paused her breath, I'd jump in. Oh, you think your day's been bad? Let me tell you how bad my day's been. And our culture, our habit, our learned behaviour was we would get home and share the worst bits of our day. Like, my wife must have thought I hated my job, but I loved it. But I was just saving the 5% that I didn't like for her. I wasn't telling her the 95 that I loved. And that's not just me. That's how families up and down the country go. Absolutely. How was your day? Rolling their eyes. Oh. Yeah. Actually, a lot of your day is really good if you can train your brain to spot it. And most people don't. Like I say, our default position is to look for the bad.
And then talking about training your brain, how can we then reprogram and change our mental habits to really, I suppose, pursue those goals that you were talking about?
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I mean, I guess the biggest challenge I've had with my PhD is trying to make it sound clever. You know, when you're playing the academic game and you've got to write 100,000 words and it's got to pass the academic test. Mm-hmm. So you wrap yourself up in academic nonsense. And my challenge has been to do that, because if you study happy people, they're not doing anything really clever. One of the reasons they're happy is it's quite simple. One of the biggest things in fact, the biggest thing that they do that differentiates really upbeat from downbeat people is a conscious and deliberate choice to have a positive approach. I describe it like Bob the Builder. Mm-hmm. If you ever watch Bob the Builder, it's proper positive, because it's like, can we fix it? Yes, we can. Mm-hmm. Now the thing about Bob is that he's got the same tools in his tool belt, and he's been to the same college as all the other builders. He's got the same qualifications. But what marks Bob out as being awesome is what's in his head, is his attitude. And the first time I ever watched Bob the Builder, right, one of his team had tarmacked his van keys underneath the new driveway. This is Goggins' house. Now, if that was me, mate, I'd be livid. Somebody would get sacked for that. But Bob's like, can we fix it? And crucially, it's his team are shouting back, yes, we can. So he's got some sort of empowered team. And if you ever watch Bob the Builder, he's an absolute joy and inspiration, because he's learned that he can't control the situation. He can't control the fact his keys are under the tarmac, but he can control how he chooses to feel about that. And that choice, I know it seems obvious, but an attitudinal choice every single day makes a huge difference. It's not a guarantee you're going to have a great day, but it starts you off with the expectation that, you know what, I'm going to be my best self today. And that doesn't mean the sun's going to shine, it doesn't mean the traffic's going to go away, but it puts you in a better position to deal when the sun doesn't shine and the traffic's bad. And the other thing, just before we do another one, is actually that choice requires an effort. It's easier just to roll out of bed and slump into work and grumble and mumble. And because it's so easy to be a mood hoover, it's so easy to join in with the general hubbub of mediocrity that's cracking off in this country, then actually being your best self and consciously, deliberately choosing to be upbeat, inspired, bright, enthusiastic, passionate and positive, they're harder choices to make. It requires effort and it requires energy. And because it's a bit harder to be your best self, most people just can't be bothered. And they give up even trying after a while. So the choice and effort are really big deals. I know it sounds simple, but that's research is proving. I can prove that, mate.
No, I bet. And it makes sense to me. And because you make a choice to be unhappy, so Why can it
Yeah.
not be converse on the
Yeah,
unhappy
yeah,
side
yeah.
of things?
And all the other stuff that these happy people do is stuff we've alluded to. They set huge goals. They play to their strengths. They have that positive, contagious impact. So they understand that. They know that if I'm having a good day, I'm going to inspire my kids, my wife, my family, my work colleagues, my customers. Because they kind of intuitively understand that, that gives them more of an impetus to do it. Because most people think it doesn't matter. Oh, it doesn't matter if I have a bad day. Yes, it does.
And that analogy actually that you used, Andy, that Bob the Builder analogy, that I like that one. And yeah, I do watch it because I've got children, so
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
always watching it. What's the best way, I suppose, to deal with, or how does Bob deal with those people around him in those situations? Those unhappy situations.
Do you know what? A couple of years ago, I would have given you some sort of withering corporate answer on that, and I would have said, "Oh, you can take them head on." But I would say, and I don't want to sound like it's sidestepping the issue because this is my best understanding of that question. Is your question is basically, how can we make other people happy? How can we deal with mood hoovers around us? And I would say, hand on heart, that I don't know the answer to that. All I would say is my research is not about other people. It's about us. It's about you as an individual. And my research shows if you are consistently as upbeat and positive and your best self, and it's not always appropriate to be upbeat and positive, so sometimes you can have a bad day, but if you can put an effort into learning to be an inspired human being, then other people around you will naturally feel better in your presence. So the negheads, the mood hoovers, you won't win them all, but they will genuinely be uplifted when you're around. Now, it's not an exact science, and sometimes you get it wrong. If you're too happy, you'll irritate them. But if you get it right, then it becomes actually quite a life force for other people. That sounds really over the top, but it's true. You become somebody who breathes life into your team at work. You become somebody who breathes life into your family when you get home from work. So instead of going home from work and asking your kids, how was your day? How was school? They'll go, it was boring. What did you learn? I can't remember. So if that's not getting a result, you need to point the finger back at yourself and change you. So I started going home and saying to my kids, how was your day? Was it good, fantastic, or brilliant? What was the highlight of your day? And that slight change in me, that slight different question, gives me a better chance. It's not a guarantee, but it gives me a better chance of getting my kids to come up with, the highlight, Dad, was this. And off we go on a positive conversation. So it's little things like that. It's tackling negativity by being your best self first. Does that make sense? I don't want to say. Does that sound like a cop out? I hope it's not. It's not.
Not at all. No, it makes sense to me. And I think you talk about 2%ers as well, don't you?
Yeah. Well, these are the ones I've been studying. Yeah, I call them 2%ers.
Are these the people that are affecting those around them to make them?
Yeah, these are basically in any organisation, it's the top 2% of people who are making others feel good. It's the upper echelons of inspiring people. There's a guy called David Taylor. You need to get him on here, mate. He's my hero. He's done the Naked Leader series, best books ever, and he talks about it's some sort of quote like your job as a leader is not to inspire people. I'm going, really? I'm sure it is. No. He says your job is to be inspired, and I think that's lovely because that's true. If you're inspired first, the world will look after itself. Don't worry about it too much. If you can be the best dad in the world, your kids will look at you and they will start to twig what normal is.
Yeah.
And for normal, if it's positive and upbeat and vibrant and confident, your children won't do what you say, Alex. You've noticed that already, but they will do what you do. So the biggest thing you will ever do is role model positivity and being your best self. That's it. It passes through the generations. There's generations of families that are mood hoovers. That it's been passed down through. The kids have learned it from the parents. Yeah, so we've got a chance here to reset what is normal, to come out fighting, so to speak.
I've got to say, there's a few mood hoovers in my family, and it's been difficult to break that cycle myself. So I hear.
Okay, but you've done it, mate. You've done it through a little bit of effort. You've set up your business. You've set a huge goal by the sounds of it. You're playing to your strengths. Everything that I'm talking about, you're like nodding because it sounds obvious. But if it was obvious and easy, everybody'd be doing it. Absolutely. And they're not. So this is why these kind of messages need to get out there.